What goes into becoming a best-selling author? One who writes thrillers that consistently land on the bestsellers list. In the case of Kathy Reichs, it all began because of a specific love.
I love a mystery. I love reading mysteries, and that's probably why I ended up writing mysteries.
Meet Charlotte's own world-renowned mystery writer, Kathy Reichs. You may have seen the name before on one of her many books. Or possibly even seen the television show Bones, which was inspired by her series of novels. But this demure, petite woman is an expert in a field that many may find cringeworthy, that of forensic science, more specifically, biological anthropology.
The anthropology, the biological anthropology, the bones, are physical evidence that I could measure or weigh or photograph. Working in a crime lab or working for a medical examiner, it has to do with looking at physical evidence, and in my case, as an anthropologist, looking at bones, in cases that might potentially end up in court.
In the early 90s, she was a newly minted professor at UNC Charlotte, where her academic background and expertise brought her to the attention of law enforcement and other agencies.
Cops started bringing me cases because I was the bones lady up at the university, so then I diverted and I was doing academia and research and teaching and forensic work. So I like the idea of taking those bones or that charred corpse or whatever it happens to be and extracting from it any information I can about who that person was in life and then what happened to them at the end of their life.
And certain cases she remembers, like her first one in Charlotte.
Oh, for me, the worst cases were always the child homicides. Yeah. And one of the first cases I worked here in Charlotte was a case of a little girl. I think she was 5 years old.
She expanded her work, doing forensic specialties for the United Nations and in Quebec, Canada, because North Carolina medical examiners at the time didn't recognize the value or the expertise of a forensic specialist. Meanwhile, for the woman who as a girl loved a mystery, well, the call to write was growing stronger.
I didn't tell anybody I was writing the book because if you write a novel in an English department, you're a hero. If you write a novel in a science department, you're a little suspect.
It marked the beginning of her writing odyssey, books that began many times from cases she was involved with.
I take a core idea from a case, just a nugget of an idea, and I ask myself, okay, we've got this dismembered body, there are unusual déjà dead, for example. The very first book is based on a case I worked on, a serial murder case in Montreal, in which the victim had been dismembered.
That first thriller novel has now been followed by 20 others over the past 2 decades or so.
I decided to write fiction. I had never done fiction before.
The acclaimed author has done the highly popular TED Talks, and her fans fill auditoriums to hear her speak about the how and the whys of writing mysteries.
I think that's part of the author's job, at least in the genre, in writing thrillers or mysteries, is to do that with the reader, as you take them up a certain pathway and then you throw in that twist so that they do go, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
But finding a name for these novels? Not such an easy task. Yet you may know her work because of a series of forensic science that helped her with all future titles. You would know it by its television name, Bones, with her lead character, Temperance Brennan.
They coined the phrase for us a crimedy because it combined crime and comedy. We wanted it to be a character-based show. We wanted to develop these characters that people would care about and want to follow, and apparently that worked because they followed us for 12 seasons. And we wanted to put humor into the show because I do that with the books.
She's also written a series of books called Virals with her son because, as she puts it,
kids are interested in solving mysteries and they're interested in forensics. So we thought that would be a great idea and created the Virals, which features Temperance Brennan's 14-year-old great niece. and her friends. So those are very popular in schools.
And just where are those intriguing stories set? Well, many times in this author's mind, she goes to the Carolinas.
I use Charlotte in many of my books. I've set some up in the mountains, I've set some down at the beach, but I've set quite a few right here in Charlotte. I've used real restaurants and real places in Charlotte in a lot of my books. I've been told part of the fun of reading those books by Charlotteans is that they recognize the places in my books.
Now finishing up her 22nd book, she contemplates the next venture. With 6 grands, she now has time to spend with them. And for this New York Times bestseller, that may be the best developing story of all. For Carolina Impact, I'm B. Thompson.
Thanks for watching, and if you don't want to miss any more great regional stories, please subscribe to our PBS Charlotte YouTube channel.